Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Convene Communities podcast. Now, here is your host, the one, the only, the legend in his own mind, Matthew Curran.
You got that right. You got that right. How you doing tonight, Doc?
Doing great, buddy. Doing great.
Oh, always. Hey, so happy to be here tonight. Jeff, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, just like always.
Awesome, awesome. So we got the one and only
The
Kate Gallihugh. How are you doing tonight, Kate?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Matt. Happy to be here.
All right, we're so happy that you're here. Look, it's going to be a great show. I'm pretty excited about this. You two have been working together for some time. We'll get into that as we talk through this. But you had a vision a long time ago, and in that vision, along came this thing called Convene Communities that was able to meet.
hmm
But before we get into all of that, introduce yourself.
Well, I am, like you said, Kate Gallihugh, and I'm a pediatric PA. I am an Optavia coach where I help people transform their lifestyle. But I think most importantly, the reason I'm sitting here today is because I'm I'm a wife, I'm a mom, a sports mama, a friend, a daughter. I've navigated a lot of life, and my trials in life really took me to a place in my adult years where I kind of lost myself between career and motherhood. And it took quite a bit of time and reflection to find myself again. But in that process, I fell in love with helping people create awareness around their habit loops, around maybe some self-limiting beliefs. And I really just found I found myself again, and it was in an authentic community that all happened. I was given the gift of health back by being coached back to health in baby steps. And what I realized is that I had spent a long time in the pediatric world reacting to disease, and I loved my career. It was really a huge part of my life. I worked in pediatric medicine clinically for about 19 years, and fell in love with helping families and connecting with them. And I really developed wonderful relationships. I'm kind of a connector and by nature, so I like to connect through stories. But I really found that it is possible to help people create health. And I found that for myself, it all started internally with me, really working through some deep things that I didn't know were there. And I started to learn to ask deeper questions, and I learned to open myself up and be vulnerable to a community, and realize that you could make a lot of true friends in a virtual, safe, authentic space. And I really just had this vision to kind of create that for parents and for our youth that I was seeing in the office really struggling and kind of hiding behind this mask of perfection like I had. And I thought, there's got to be a better way than what we see in the outer social media world to bring people together.
Yeah, you talk about one thing, and all our talks that we've had, that it was kind of a moment for you, and I think a lot of people relate to this. So, talk about the picture when you were at the game, and that you
hmm
looked at, and you had been at work, and you had been working so hard, pouring into
Yeah.
your career, and you saw this picture, and this was like a moment for you that kind of helped you kind of start making some differences in life.
Yeah, it was my son's championship game for his little league. And I remember that day that I had not eaten and I hadn't had any much to drink at all. And I was the mom who was rushing to the office from the office to the ball field in my high heels to catch the game. And then I was on call and got two calls during that game. And one of them was quite lengthy. So I'm sitting there wanting to watch my son's big moment, and they were winning the city championship. But I also had responsibilities as a PA, and I care very deeply about my patients. I wanted to be present on that phone call for this young lady who needed me. And it's really hard to be so stretched thin and to not have the capacity to take care of yourself. And when I saw that picture, I realized that I didn't recognize myself anymore. And I really just had this desire to change. It honestly, though, was Matt. Matt, when you asked that question, it was somebody asking me a question. It was in that season of life. I didn't like how I looked in that picture, and there were some realizations, but someone asked me a question. And it was, what do you do for you? And the only answer I could come up with was, I watch my kids play sports, which is something I love, absolutely love, but that's what they love to do. And I love to watch them do what they excel in. And I had stopped doing creative expression. I stopped doing much in the way of exercise, and really a lot of the things that made me, photography, things like that, I stopped doing. And so it really was the catalyst, that question, and someone being curious about me, that changed the trajectory of my life. And I vowed in that moment to be somebody who asks better questions and listens deeper and invites people to change if they're ready for change. And I found some really tremendous ways of doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like probably most parents that have, children, especially younger teenage, older adolescent, younger teenage children, rushing them from here to there and everywhere else, and being so far caught up into their life that you forget about your own life for a while, right?
You do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our kids are our worlds, really. But I've realized that if I don't like how I feel, or maybe even how our relationships are going, a lot of times it's because of my own lack of emotional availability. I'm
Hmm.
exhausted, so I'm crabby. Or,
Yeah.
I serve all day, and I come home and they get the irritable, exhausted version that falls asleep on the couch. And I didn't like
Yep.
that. They're my
Yep.
favorite people. I wanted
Right.
to be there for my husband and have great conversation, not pass out on the couch. And so it was a game changer to start taking care of me the way that I needed to as a human being. And it created a ripple in my home where we started just doing things differently. We talked to each other differently. And, the habits that I was working on, I could ripple into the home. So I fell in love with that. And I became a coach to help plant the same tools into other families' laps who were struggling like me to make all those ends meet amidst the
Yeah.
busyness of parenthood.
Yeah.
You saw how there was an intersect, though, right, in your pediatric world as being a PA, and then this world that you had created as a health coach and everything. So, talk a little bit about that, about how you saw that there's this intersection where you could work with people, you could talk with people, and kind of give them guidance, and that carried over to some of your patient care as well.
Yeah, I realized, Matt, that I had kind of gotten into this mode of getting away from lifelong learning. I would learn enough to keep going in my career, but I think we need to learn how to thrive, and we need to learn how to live. We need to learn how to parent. And a lot of that comes through collaboration and talking about real things. And social media in general is not the best place for that. We get so many opinions, and we get the front yard of everybody that looks perfect, and we compare. But what I was finding in the authentic community that I was placed into with Optavia is that people were really real, and they went deeper. And it was a learning environment. We learned positive psychology concepts. So I really imagined, is there a way to create something similar for parents where we could connect like we were in this health community, but in a safe and virtual environment for parents, and not have it be in a distracted, noisy, notification filled space like some of the other platforms. I don't want you know to diss them in any way. There's a place and a time for that, but when you really need to learn, it needs to be in more of a quiet, reflective space where you feel safe and you can be anonymous. And that's what I was looking for. I wanted that for parents, and I also wanted a separate community of sorts where teens and young adults could feel safe in a peer-to-peer style environment, but with professional oversight and resources of people who had been several steps ahead of them, and really could give them some guidance as to how to thrive, how to develop emotional well-being, and really teach them that their story matters too, and they have a lot to teach us. I want kids to realize how important their stories are also.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. You're muted, Jeff. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. You said something important at the beginning that caught my attention, and you were talking about parenting, and people just sort of collaborating and talking to each other a lot about parenting and everything else. But I think another important step to that is also listening, choosing who to listen to, when to listen to, and not always have the opinion, or so what we'll talk about later in Convene in our communities, in your community as well, is reading and listening in that respect of taking advice from others and not always having to give it.
Very true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Kate, one of the things that Optavia brings around, and it kind of translates over to Convene, but is you see that when people come to that community, they all come with a story. They all come with something. And so talk about how important that is.
Well, sharing your story shows that you're not that person anymore. You're transforming, you're changing. I mean, I'm not going to be the same person in 5 minutes than I am right now. You change with time. And so we don't need to look back with shame and guilt. And, a lot of these people have suffered through things like grief or trauma, and that caused a lot of those coping behaviors like emotional eating, which I definitely suffered from a lot in my life, or sugar addiction, because it helps us get those little boosts. But really sharing showed people they're not alone. And so when you share it, that's how we connect. We connect through those facets of our behavior, or maybe little bits of our story that feel like they understand what it felt like in my shoes to be that busy mom, or and it didn't make me a bad mom. I was serving my kids as best as I knew how, but that's not me anymore, and I think if we can learn from those experiences and the lessons learned in life, it helps us be more aware if we're starting to slip back, and pick ourselves up a little faster. It's not that we live life perfectly because of the lessons we learned from our past, but we're more aware of when things are starting to slide a little, or when we're letting the heaviness of life weigh us down. We're more in check with our emotions and behaviors, and know how to process them in a healthy way. Hope that answered your question.
It totally did. I mean, it's like you say, we're not walking alone, but a lot of times we feel like we're walking alone in this life. We feel like we're the only person that's suffering with that emotional eating, or, the certain things that are bringing us down, and we're not. There's so many others that are going through the same thing. And so when you build that community, and that's really what you're good at and you want to do more of, when you build that community, you offer that place where people go, oh, they're going through this too. I'm not the only one going through this. And that's so important in life, because especially in today's times, there's so much stress, anxiety, depression, these problems that we're going through, and we get caught up in that aloneness.
Yeah, for sure. And I think some people don't. I have a great group of girlfriends. We can be authentic together, and we share stories of parenting, and I always feel such relief. I had a date with them this week. We went out to dinner, but I want people who don't have that to feel like they have that in the communities that I've created with my team, and personally in Convene, where you feel like you are known and you're understood, if you maybe don't have that in your world of a supportive network that's in person. I think you can never replace in-person connection, but you want people to be able to access a life-giving community anywhere.
Absolutely. Jeff, why don't you talk a little bit about, and transition into, Kate wrote something. She wrote it on paper, and then you actually met up with Kate up in Michigan, and kind of that story, and let her talk about that as well.
Right. That's what I was actually just going to bring up was our meeting up in Michigan. So, but three summers ago, I guess now. My wife and I, both from Michigan. Kate and I are from the same hometown, as you know. But
I'm pretty much from Michigan. I mean,
that's true. You need to stay there in a complete winter before you can start really saying that. But
too cold.
So, but anyway, no, we took our daughters on a tour of Michigan. They hadn't been up, so we spent 2 weeks up in Michigan, and and met Kate and Chad and my two best friends growing up at their house up in northern Michigan. And we were just sort of talking about, Chad was coaching and I was coaching and you were working with kids. And we just started talking about our kids and helping kids and young adults and everything together. And you mentioned your white paper, which Matt was referring to right now, and sort of your vision, your goal. And it really struck me. And, I'll let you pick up from there, but it struck me that how similar not only we had thoughts, but a lot of people have the same sort of thoughts on this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, the vision you originally talked about, Matt, happened a year before Jeff and I were on that beach, and it was in the exact same location. Yeah, I believe when distractions go away and you can be quiet in a beautiful place, I believe we can hear more things that we really need to hear, and some of that is within. So I kind of described it a bit already, where we could have these two authentic communities, but a lot of it was, hey, Jeff, are you seeing this with the girls that you work with on the soccer team? And are you seeing this in your classroom with the adolescents? And I believe I have a solution that could be of value. And I've started talking about it with some professionals like you and other teachers and youth pastors and coaches that are in my kids' world. And, I feel like this could be something that could help connect people back to themselves, one another, and then the world around them. And I was very excited to hear, because I had no idea if this was given to me, how, as a full-time pediatric PA and busy mom who's not techie, how am I supposed to build a virtual learning space for parents and youth? But yet, if you keep asking enough questions and you get curious enough, I believe sometimes those answers come to you, and they did that day. And you happen to say, well, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, a lot of what we sort of found, exciting and interesting and strange at the same point was, you're up in Michigan, I'm down in North Carolina. We've traveled and we have connections in other part of the country and the world, really. But all the stories that you were sharing from Midland and the middle of Michigan were very similar to stories that I had and experienced and hear from my kids and that I teach and coach down here. So, it wasn't just something, all these feelings that these young kids are having and even parents were having, not just isolated to our own little areas. It really became quite evident that it's really just happening everywhere. All these thoughts and these feelings and of distress and anxiety and everything else we spoke about that day or that weekend, really.
Yeah, exactly. I was so excited though, because after sharing that, you said, well, Kate, you and I need to sit down together when we get home, because I've been working on exactly what you just described for about 5 years, and I can help you build what is on your heart. And then you very graciously agreed to build them with me, which has been wonderful.
It has been. Keep getting that way. Keep being wonderful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't know who built this site. It's really pretty.
When you find out, will you share it with me?
If I'm going to figure it out,
No.
but this guy's amazing. Yeah.
Well, Matt, and to
Thank
give
you.
you credit where credit is due.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah. To give you credit where credit's due, your vision was so similar to mine, and you'd created it back in 2008?
Yeah, I started about 2008, 2009 with the vision, and had been building it on and off since, so that's right.
Yes. And you really got Jeff and I, you facilitated the creation of Uniquely You and Uniquely Yours, and got us going. And I'm just so appreciative that you never gave up on your vision, and you kept plugging away, and it's really growing. And I think sometimes dreams intersect, and you provided the way for mine to become a reality. So I'm very grateful.
I remember when we met and we started talking, you watched a video, early on video. I sent it to you, and I had forgotten that I had put in that video, or that I had talked about in that interview. I can't remember if my son interviewing me or who was, but I talked about the need and the want for a parenting community. And I had
Yeah.
forgotten that that was in there, and that was actually in the video that you watched. And it's true because, you know, I'm a counselor, you're a PA, pediatric PA. Jeff's a coach, who was my son's first college soccer coach, and
Mhm.
a teacher. And so we all have this, and Doc, you know, has kids as well. You know, we all have our parents, we all have kids, we're all vested in kids, but we also all see the problems that go on out there with kids, you know. So this
Yeah.
is such an extremely important topic that it's not only the kids that are suffering, it's the parents who are trying to figure it out and scratching their heads and going, well, what do we do? How do we navigate these waters? And so it's exciting that this is the vision, right? So let's talk about
Yeah.
the vision a little bit,
Yeah.
and let's talk about uniquely you and uniquely yours, and tell them
Mhm.
about your vision and what it is.
Yeah. Well, I just really wanted a resource, Matt, to when I would have to meet with a family who was in distress and tell them there was a 9-month waiting list for them to get into a counselor, or no bed for their kid who had an eating disorder. That didn't sit okay with me. So I wanted them to have a resource that they felt empowered. They could come and they could learn, they could connect with other people who might have some tips, but it felt safe and they could be anonymous and they didn't have to share their own name or their child's name. And so that's really what we've created. So Uniquely Yours was the first slide you showed. That was just our information page. It gives a brief overview. And you know, we like to call it like the mall for parents. So it's your stories and your children. And when you come into a parents mall, you're not going to go into every store. You're going to go into the stores that you want. So we have various groups within the stores, and those help to kind of niche it down into exactly what you're looking for, and connect with your people. So, you know, we do have some discussion boards and
Well, let's real quick.
experiences.
Let's show slide. We'll show the
Yeah.
slide. We have a slide that has groups on it. Have Doc put that up because you have a group. Amy has a group. Jeff has groups in there. So if you can pull that slide up, Doc, it's the one that has the picture. Kate, and talk about what you're looking for. What do you want? The goal of growing groups inside of this community that can answer questions and provide safe spaces.
Hmm. Yeah, you know, I think one of the key aspects of this is it's a really great space for personal coaches who already work with people to come and connect with them and enhance their learning through some of these virtual experiences that we can build within Convene, because this is a learning management system. It's a wonderful place for peer-to-peer type of communities, ideally mostly in our teen and young adult community. But this is also where professionals who educate parents, like you can see, we have Amy Krause's group in there, and we have Jim Hendricks's group in there. Amy is an empowerment speaker for youth and parents, but she's very as real as they come, and really wants to take the tools that she's learned and bring them into a learning environment and bring parents on live on Zoom to talk through some of the stuff. So it kind of brings that virtual space to life from time to time. And I do that in a different group myself, which we'll get to in a moment. And Jim Hendricks teaches parents about the child's developing brain for those parents, like I saw many times, who didn't want to put their child on medicine for any type of psychiatric conditions, or ADHD, anxiety, depression. What are some tools that they could use instead of rushing right to medicine, or maybe in addition to help keep them on the lowest dose that they'd need? It's really fascinating,
Yeah.
just to put yourself in that learner's seat, and that's really, I think, how I fell in love with learning again, is realizing, gosh, when I apply these new tricks, it actually works, and
Right.
it makes me a better mom. A better mom isn't just going out and finding the quick fix. A better mom is taking personal responsibility to change the things we can change.
Yeah. Well, and it's a community for not just, I mean, you just mentioned yourself and two other experts in the field, but it's not just a community for experts. It's a community for all parents, and all parents have expertise, right? Um,
Yes.
we can all be in there. We all need advice. I'm sure there were plenty of things while you were practicing, with the pediatric, with those kids in your practice, that, you're not going to just stop learning what you knew previously. You're going to continue to educate yourself so you can continue to help the kids and families in a different way. Well, that's really one of the main principles of Uniquely You and, Uniquely Yours, well, also Uniquely You for teens, but for Uniquely Yours is to continue to educate yourself, to continue to learn, to continue to help others and have others help you, right?
It totally is, yes. And a lot of what I use now in my own household were tips that other parents gave me in clinical practice. I gave good advice too, but I want people's stories and lessons learned to find value here. And
Right.
I'm just kind of one of the people bringing all the people together, but a
Right.
lot of it's just me sharing my own stories of what worked for me as a mom. And it's not necessarily professional advice all the time that I'm giving. Some of it I did learn through working with individuals for nearly 19 years, but
Yeah.
a lot of it's just tried and true school of
Yeah.
hard knocks lessons. So
Well,
Right.
it's like sitting around the kitchen table and saying, "Hey, if you're going through this situation, how would you handle it?" And that's really what Convene is. It's a big
yeah,
kitchen table. We can sit around and we can lean on each other. And if we ask those questions, then people are going to say, "Hey, do what I did," or "Don't do what I did," or "I made this mistake," or "I did this and it worked out great." Because that's really what goes on in life. That's just the truth, and we can all learn from each other. And that shared learning environment is what we're really trying to create, but we're also trying to create that shared learning support network. And so one of the
Yeah.
ways we do that is through discussion boards. So
mhm.
talk about the key, and we're going to show a Uniquely You discussion board. Uh, the first, yeah. So here's the discussion board, like some of the topics, and then
Mhm.
we'll talk about the discussion board itself, one of them specifically.
Yeah, so discussion boards are great because you can see the topic there. You can decide what you want to go in if you feel you could add value to something, or maybe it's something you want to learn about. You can see that. But the beauty here is you can ask a question anonymously and you can answer it anonymously. So if you're feeling a little vulnerable in your answer with what you're revealing, that just really helps take that pressure off and brings those walls down and allows you to add value to someone else's life. And that's really, we want people to feel that their difficult seasons find purpose when you can help another individual, and especially with our kids and our youth.
Mhm.
I think a lot of times they silently suffer with way more than we realize. I was that adolescent high achieving kind of girl where I wore a really good mask, but I did deal with some things inside. And um, but to consider all that our kids are carrying today, and many of them putting so much pressure on themselves, I like them to know that they're not alone. And I like to have that safe space we could invite them to find some purpose through the things they've navigated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because and it's so important. So, and we're going to show one here right now that is an actual post that somebody came in and put in, and so it's called School Drama, and so this was a actual post. Somebody came in and actually wrote about it, and I want to point out one four-letter word here at the end of what this person wrote, and it's help in all caps. So talk about this and why this was important. One of the things that was key is it's anonymous, anonymous, anonymous. Then they can't see it
Mhm.
below. But Kate, you come in and you respond as a professional. And then
Mhm.
actually, my daughter Lainey, who is a senior in high school, came in and responded as herself as a senior in high school. So talk about
Yeah.
the importance
Well,
of this piece.
yeah, and I would say this is classic peer-to-peer environment
Mhm.
because we are getting student responses, but it's got oversight from professionals. So there's people monitoring, but this is an intentional platform. You come in with a purpose. It's that platform with a purpose. We have never had to remove anything, but we could. So we want parents to realize, like, if your kids come in here, we are the eyes and ears and we are watching over it, but kids want to learn from other kids that truly get them.
Mhm.
She probably learned more from Lainey's response than mine, but I'm also a few years down the line. I have some wisdom to share. So, at some point, maybe those little points will register for when she needs that type of advice. So it's pretty neat to have both, and to have that option to be anonymous in both the question asker and the answerer. And ironically, the mother of that particular person, because they knew, was able to mentor her daughter as an anonymous answer. So that was kind of fun too.
Exactly.
Well, and I was going to point out the other anonymous answers below it, where you read from them, and they're certainly school aged people, not really sure what age, certainly over middle school, because I think one mentioned high school as well. But there's a chance for them to be authentic, like you said, without their name attached to it, right?
Mhm.
So they can give their fair sharing feelings. I mean, so every morning, Kate, I sit at my desk in my classroom, and kids can come into my class, or all the classes, but a lot of kids will come in my class and do some work or just sit and chat. And there's a table that sits 6 right next to my desk. And the conversations that these kids have are hilarious. But there's 2 girls that always sit there, and they always come in sort of first, and they're always sort of chatting. They're pretty quiet anyway, and they're always sharing with each other. And then as soon as someone comes in the room, that's one of their peers, they switch the topic. And I always go back to thinking about those sort of posts and the anonymity pieces. They're comfortable within themselves talking to each other. They're comfortable with me there. Obviously, they have to know that I can hear, but they're not talking about. But as soon as a peer comes in and they know that peer might hear what they're saying,
Yeah.
it just shuts and turns it off. Where at that post, that could have been a friend of someone that posted that thing, right? And it's anonymous.
Right.
You can give their advice, and they feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's huge to give kids a safe and a place to be themselves and say what is on their mind, because kids harbor so much pressure and emotions that are bigger than ever. And we really want to give them a space to safely unpack and process those so that they don't harm themselves or others. There's too much of that right now.
And they're also very perceptive, more perceptive than we give kids credit for. They know a lot. They're able to offer some pretty good advice of their own too.
Yeah, and that feels good. They might that can lead to a career path. If you're like, man, you know what? I think I give pretty good advice. I might like to pursue a career in counseling or something like that. It gives them some life experience in here, building a safe and life-giving community. So that's something we hope to see more of. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's important our kids, and again, going back to this, you're not walking alone. And when they can see that other people are going through the same things that they're going through, it's important. So speaking of that, we're going to talk about another community that you're involved in, and that is the Women's Collective. And so talk a little real quickly about this, because really we want to transition to your group that you have in there. So talk a little bit about women supporting women here.
Yeah. So, well, women tend to be really, really good at community and authenticity and connection and sharing deeper things. So, having a women's community, I think, was imperative for Convene. This is a newer community, so it's in its early phases of development. But I have always had on my heart really the desire to help mainly moms, but women to grow in faith. And as I got healthier mentally and physically, there's always a what's next in your journey. And for me, it was growing in faith. And I realized that doing it in baby steps for a busy mom is really the only way that I could do it. And I knew I wasn't alone in that. My kids travel on the weekends. Church is sometimes not even an option. Youth group isn't an option for them, or Bible study for me. So how could I have Christian fellowship in little bits and pieces that could fit into a busy mom's world like myself? And so one morning on a baseball trip, I woke up. I remember writing you, Matt, because you work with NASCAR. I'm like, I'm supposed to make this group, and it's supposed to be called the Midweek Pit Stop. And I was so excited about it, because I thought a pit stop is how we reconnect and we refuel and release the things that are holding us captive. So what this is these are there's 21 weeks of lessons now. We connect once a week on Wednesdays at lunchtime for 30 minutes. and each of those pictures are a Bible verse, and we reflect on it for one solid week. I assign it on Sunday. They have an experience that they work through. It's a lesson, so they read the verse, they get a little bit of some guidance on how to process it and think about how it applies to a woman's life today. And then they get those experiences, and all of their answers go in anonymously.
Yeah.
And but then we bring it to life, and we talk just like this on Zoom, and wow, is it powerful. I've
Yeah,
been
let's
so
show what that
touched.
looks like. Slide. This is
Yeah.
the background information. So this is the one that you did this week. This is today. So talk a little bit about how you come up with this and what you guys are talking about this week, and we'll just kind of give a little overview.
Yeah, so this one was today, and it's near and dear to my heart. My mother is a widow, and this is a verse from the book of James, and it's about how do we serve orphans and widows in our lives. And so there's various ways that that can look, and I talked a lot about how my journey with my mom has been, and how really now being in the role that I'm in, where I can work for myself, just really helping her in new ways has been such a blessing. And even just, but really the women broke down such simple ways that even the busiest of people can make a massive impact into the lives of people who have a lot of loneliness. Many of them talked about examples of things they can do in schools, at like being a big they call it, in the school for a child who does not have a supportive home life or needs a little extra one-on-one attention. Sending snail mail cards to tell someone that you're thinking of them, and how it's so important when someone's lost a loved one to think about them well after the funeral and really ask them how they're doing. And there were just awesome examples shared today. And each of us, what touched my heart is they read it on Sunday, and then they had real life examples of how it was able to be used already, and they were able to talk to me about it on Wednesday. And
Yeah.
so
It's really
it
cool.
was neat to see faith in action, and then we all connected on the one verse in many aspects of our story. So there were tears and happiness alike.
Yeah.
And then we record them, so that's what you're showing there, Matt. I just summarize it. I leave them with a prayer for the week, and then that bottom is a Vimeo recording, so those who can't join can watch the half-hour recording and not miss anything. And it's all private, so that all stays, those tender stories stay private. You have to be very intentional to be in there. It's more of a membership based group. So
Yeah, it's a membership private group, so
Mhm.
people can't get there. And so I wrote up there the power of the process on that slide, because I want you to talk about this. I think that this group for you, Kate, was an awakening for you to see the
mhm.
power of what Convene can do. And
Mhm.
so talk a little bit about that, about how that, this has been a success for you, and
Yeah.
success for the women, and you've really been able to come together. So talk about that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, well, I would sit down, and I've loved Convene from the moment that I met the team and saw it and saw how it could make my dream a reality, mainly because it just enhances the learning process. And adults don't always understand learning management systems because it's what our kids are growing up with, but we didn't have that. So it was hard for me to explain it to coaches and people that I knew maybe through Optavia or other like life coaches, to show how they could enhance their clients' experience without having my own group to show how I'm using the resource. So now I really have that, and I can. I mean, week after week, I'm blown away, and it's enhancing my own learning. I'm just making an experience for myself to take. Is
Yeah.
essentially what I'm doing. So um, I go in, I create it, I log out, I go in as another user, and I go in and take the experience. And so I'm just one of the group that facilitates the Zoom, and we're all mutually benefiting from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty cool. I think it's really
Yeah.
cool. Um,
Well, it's a perfect example of using a group with Zoom and with other people and with passages. I mean, think about the uses, not just Bible verses and Christianity studies and that, but really anybody that has some good content that want to share it with others, but also not just share it, but be a part of the other people's lives as well, right? You have it, you give it to them, they read over it or listen to whatever the content is, and like you said, a couple days later, they're already experiencing what they read, and now they can share those real life experiences and share them with you, and you're learning from them. I mean, it's Matt, like you said, the process, it's a perfect process for a group in Convene.
Yeah. And it really, I always say it 10x is your Bible study experience, or your book study, or your support group experience, because you're holding them accountable to do a weekly lesson. They have that quiet, reflective space to process their feelings, think about it, write about it. And then when they go through it unbiased, then they get to read everyone else's, and they get, maybe 10, however many they read and talk about. I always like to say you 10x your experience. If you read 10 answers, then you get your ultimate lesson learned from it. And you ask that, what was your big takeaway? Well, when I had my own plus 10, then I had a really big takeaway. So it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a resource, like Jeff's saying, it's a resource that anybody can take and go and run in whatever direction that they want to go. I think authors are great people, great, people that can use the site, use it for your book club. And I told you, I said, you're doing a book club, with what you're doing. And you're like, yeah, it's the Bible. It's a book review,
It's a real book.
It's a real book, so that's very true. Very true. But that gave you the confidence, I think, to move forward. And you and I have been working together, and you've created your own group because, Kate, you are a transformation coach, a personal and family transformation coach. So let's talk about, Kate Gallihugh, the agent of change, and now how you've created this book inside, this group, inside of the Uniquely Yours, and what do you want to do with it?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. And thank you just for your mentorship, Matt. That's something sometimes you don't see your own worth. So having a mentor like you remind me that I do bring value to the table with the various things that I've done. I do oversee Uniquely You and Yours, but I do have the midweek pit stop it's my baby in there that I love, and I love what's happening. So I can highlight that. I have graphics that show what that's all about. And then on my heart recently, though, is really, I deeply desire speaking to kids again and connecting with kids. So I would like to be someone who goes into schools and teaches kids and other audiences about the value of unpacking the weight of life and not trying to carry it on your own. And, I've got some content that I can share that, and some visuals to really help with that. So I can advertise my speaking services in here. I can be as a certified Convene platform professional, I can help people create their content in here and be paid for that service. If someone's too busy, but they love this idea, they can send me, their content. I can put it into an experience, create their group, and they don't have to go through the extra time to do that. So that's a whole separate thing. So people need to know what I offer. But one thing I'm excited about, and it's not out yet, but I can do some high level coaching with people where, Optavia, you get a free coach, and I do baseline guidance, one, brief conversation a week. But if you really want to go deep and you want to grow in faith and you want to, learn and have me create these deeper level modules, I could even have a one-on-one high level coaching package that I do for somebody based on all of my knowledge and expertise, and they get their own private group. And so that organizes our talk. So you did that with me, Matt, right?
Yeah, I did.
We do
Absolutely.
that. So you challenge me in there, I write you back, you hold me accountable, and look what happened. I actually made my group happen. So
Exactly.
thank you.
You have your group ready for this, and you got it ready early, which was awesome. So that's actually a wonderful thing. And so, this is going to be great because you're going to go into that coaching, that mentor. It's going to help you. It's going to help you really kind of organize your stuff and organize documents and all those different things that really are sometimes get lost. And now it's going to be great. So I'm excited about that for you. I think that you're going to be it's going to take your stuff to the next level. And I think
Yeah, you're gonna be excellent at it. The amount of attention that you'll give to each one of your clients is going to be exceptional. I can tell.
Yeah.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Hey, put that question back up there, Doc. This is a question that was asked, Kate. All right. And so you can read that. It said, it's from Eugene Brown. You said that you have a deep desire to share your tricks with you that help me get unstuck. Can you give us an example?
Yeah. Well, a lot of that, I've learned how to reframe my thoughts and totally shift my perspective on. Um, I think looking back, I was always someone who made a lot of excuses. I'm too busy, or that's just how I am. Instead of asking myself or saying I can't, it's how can I? And sometimes just saying yes to something that there's a deep desire for and then figuring out the how. I think for me, being somewhat impulsive, as you know, impulsivity can be a little bit of a detriment or a curse, but it can be a blessing too, because I do take risks that are good too. I mean, I took a risk to start coaching in the midst of motherhood. I took a risk to start growing this thing that was on my heart. And so I think in years past, I would always talk myself out of things by saying, I just can't. That's just how I am. I'm always disorganized, or like I would speak negativity over myself and limit myself. And I've learned to look at, we all have strengths and we have lesser strengths, but we shouldn't look at those things as weaknesses. They're just lesser strengths. And if we spend a little time developing them, then we can really move ourselves forward and do a lot more than we ever thought we could. For example, I guess I could give you, I always said I'm not a runner, but last year I ran in a Ragnar relay race with 11 women and we ran 200 miles together. So I definitely can run when I put my mind to it. But so it's not, I can, it's how can I? I guess, I hope that helps, Eugene.
Yeah. No, I think that's actually a great example.
Kate, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So this is something that we've both seen, but you went through with your son a little bit, and I want you to speak not only from a mother, but also from your professional side. But and it's close to me, young athletes, right? So what advice, I guess I should say, would you give young athletes that have a pretty serious injury, that are out for a little while? And sports is so much identity of these young kids these days. Now your son had one and couldn't play for a few months, right?
Yeah.
And that was probably hard, not only physically on him, but mentally. So speak to that a little bit. What kind of advice or what would you say to kids going through that, or parents that have kids going through that?
I think first, just honoring it is hard. It is like letting them feel disappointed for a moment, but then coming in and reminding them that this is temporary. That I always talk about, he had a foot fracture, and foot fractures, when they heal stronger than they were before the foot fracture. And that also is just kind of an analogy to the whole person. So when you have an event like that and you're broken down, you come back and you're mentally and physically stronger. So what we did in that season when LJ broke his foot is we set some goals. We said, what do you want to accomplish in these next few months? Because you can't use your body in the same way. How can you maybe learn to use your voice and be a little bit more of a leader on the sideline? Or actually, he ended up going out in the garage at 5 a.m. and he would work on his upper body strength because he couldn't use his feet. And he wrote down, I want to, he had some grade goals he wanted to do. He wanted to make the elite 7-on-7 football team, and he wanted to make JV as a freshman for for football at Midland High the following year. Right. All three of those things happened because he wrote them down. We stuck it on a sticky note on the window and he focused on it. So that's a big part of like telling them what they can do. So you can't use your foot right now. What part of your body can you use? You can use your voice. You can work on your upper body. You can set some goals and you can you'll feel a sense of accomplishment in that season, and you'll be way stronger as a
And
result.
it's not like he might not have wanted those goals anyway, but it gave him a chance, fortunately and unfortunately, to sit back and really focus on those. Whereas, had he been playing and had those goals, it takes that little bit of extra time away. So now, what his lesson learned now, right, is also moving forward. This is what I can do even when I am playing.
Yeah.
Or I am busy. Yeah.
And he's
Yeah,
having
thanks,
a good year. He's having
He
a good
is.
He is.
All right, I live vicariously through you and Chad, watching your kids and watching Jeff's kids, and all mine are older now. So
You've been there, though.
Your kids are doing pretty well. Don't worry about it, man.
Yes.
It's true what you say. I mean, we did the same thing, with our kids in so many different areas and all that. And I think parenting wise, that's why it's great to come together in a parenting community, because you can share ideas, you can talk about all those. So when you hit that adversity, because I can remember when he fractured his foot. I remember like the stress that was on you, and you're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But you can talk about that, and that's a great example, Jeff, and a good question and a great answer of how you can support each other in that process.
Yeah, and I don't know if we didn't touch on it, but we have a injured athlete experience that if a parent has a kid that is in that situation, I would love to direct them as to how to find that. We have a youth athlete group within Uniquely You, and it's right in there. It's one of the only experiences at this point, but it's a really powerful one. So LJ's taken it. Yeah, exactly. And there's some professional videos of U of M athletes that have overcome some adversity, and then he gets to share his story. And then you shared your story, Matt, too, of foot fractures and stuff that you sustained, and so it's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like it. So, we only got about 8 minutes. If you do have a question for Kate, please ask it. But what are you looking to do? And this is, I mean, really, it's a little bit to both of you. But what are you looking to do on growing these parenting communities and this youth community and your personal stuff? Like, what are the goals? What do you want to have happen within the next, year of growth for you guys?
You go first, Kate. I'll just bounce off of your suggestions.
Okay. Well, I really have the desire to bring more peer-to-peer groups in here. I think it's set up for success. So my current goal is to have conversations and help people build them out, because I know people are busy, but then train them on how to use these simple experiences as an adjunct to what they're already doing. It's not reinventing the wheel. But if kids understand this type of environment, they want to share their stories. They want a safe place to connect. And, I really believe this will be an important tool and resource to get into the hands of some of the P2P groups where some of these students are responsible to be the first point of contact if a kid's having some suicidal thoughts. So arming them with a plan on, how to connect them with the right people, how to ask the right questions and become active listeners. That's a huge opportunity for these leadership kids. But then giving them an environment where they can actually ask some of those deeper questions. And we have ways to keep them safe. If there are things and we can't figure out, who the anonymous user was, we do have a way if we had to. So that's always a question. Well, what if someone's suicidal? We could figure it out. But in general, we won't unless
searching for that.
Absolutely necessary. Yeah. So, but I think that's going to be really one of my goals, Matt, is when I do the speaking and things like that I also give that opportunity to build peer-to-peer groups as a leave behind and really work with the school on bringing that piece of the puzzle in that I think is vital.
Yeah. No,
what do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of that. I think for me, leadership in both groups is important to me. I think leadership, not just in the Youth Uniquely You group, but also in the parenting group. I mean, there needs to be strong leaders in that group as well. But leadership with the youth, I want to get a group or two of, like Kate said, leaders, maybe in different aspects, maybe, in an athletic access or from an athletic point of view, or from a from just a peer-to-peer type leadership point of view. I mean, whatever it is, but I want them to be able to create that group, and sort of guide them through it. Parenting community, uniquely yours. I think for me, it's finding people in groups to come in and share their content and to collaborate, but is also to make sure these people understand that it's not just a community for experts to give advice or to give content. It's a
Oh,
community for anybody. Anybody can have a
yes.
group, or you don't even have to have a group. You just be a part of the parenting community, right? To get out of the Instagram, TikTok type mindset of just scrolling through, and to get out of the Facebook mindset of scrolling and snarky comment here and there. But
Yeah.
to come in and just have some authentic collaboration. So those are probably two of my big keys right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Big question from Amy. What is the best advice you have been given that you bring into your parent life?
I think put your own oxygen mask on first is really because,
That's awesome
right?
answer.
Well, and Amy, this
Just the
speaks
pilot.
to what you do, is if you don't take care of you, and I don't mean just eat right, drink your water, exercise, you need to go deep within yourself. That's what's where I got healthy, I got thinner, then I got more spiritual, but until I really dug deep and found the root of my limiting beliefs and all of that helps me to help my kids understand themselves better. It
Mhm.
helps me to be more emotionally available and less reactive because I'm living healed instead of hurt. And so that is so important, and not to just take your kids out on this journey and put them into these environments or take them to the counselor or get them on medicine. All of us have things that we can do to say I'm working with you, and so take care of you. It will help you take care of your people in your
Yeah.
household, and then it helps you show up better for the world around you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Modeling for your kids, modeling not only
Yeah.
proper behaviors, but that you're continually working on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And understand
Yeah.
everybody's different. Your kids are different. Your personalities are different. You all have a love language. I love to go there, but
Yes.
know your family's love language, and your not only your spouse, your own, and your kids. All right, so we're going to wrap it up, and I'm going to come back to you, Kate, and give you the last word. But I want to just kind of throw something out about Doc. You see up in the upper left-hand corner, donate button. If Doc is doing this and he has to spend money to do this, he spends a lot of time, so you can hit that donate button up there in the corner. Throw him a few dollars here and there. That just helps him cover the cost and everything that he's doing. He's doing an amazing job. He'll take you to his Venmo page, which is amazing. The other one is join Kate's community. It's in the Uniquely You Uniquely Yours is the one that we take. The link will take you to. Go in there and join her group and all that. And that's just a wonderful thing as well. So I really appreciate that. Kate, I'll give you the last words and then I'll close this out. So what do you think?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to have been able to speak to everyone tonight and share what we're up to. I'm grateful to you, Matt, like I said, for just working so hard to create this space that gives everyone a community to belong. I believe in community, I believe in connection and helping people tell their story, and that telling it matters, writing it matters, and really just finding that's not who we are anymore. We have learned a lot, and how do we move forward together? So I see that we thrive together in community. That's one of my taglines for the year, and just encourage people to explore some new ways of finding hope and healing that they may not have tried yet. This does feel different, but it's also really, really awesome. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
invite them to check it out.
Jeff, you got 10 seconds.
Follow Kate's community. She's doing an unbelievable job. I'm just a co-pilot.
That's
She's
right.
doing a great job.
Co-pilots are important, but yeah,
That's right.
she's the lead
I
She's the
there.
appreciate
pilot.
you, Jeff.
Yeah, all right, really, really wonderful. Yes, follow Uniquely You, Uniquely Yours. Go in if you're a woman looking for a home and looking to come together. Get into that women's collective. Let's become engaged in that. Let's build communities of interest. We can do so much good lifting each other up. And Kate, you are doing that, and I'm so proud of you. I have loved to see how you've just come alive in the last, year. You've been building it. Now you're just really making things happen. And I think, just to see what you're doing in that midweek pit stop and bringing those women together and allowing them that space to share is just, it's an amazing thing. And that's what this is all about. Our job is to lift each other up, and Convene is a platform with a purpose, and your purpose is helping us drive and really grow. So thank you so much, Doc. As always, thank you for everything you do. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next week, we
You're
got
the man,
Lisa
Doc.
Herring. Lisa Herring next week. So please join us.
Oh,
Have a good night.
thanks.